Welcome into this Sunday night edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta coming at you here on the brand new Pushing the Pile YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, go like, follow, subscribe on YouTube. Pushing the Pile is the name of the show. We had a fun day of football, JP. And I'll just say this, as a Packers fan, Packers on a bye week, first bye week here, week 5. I almost enjoy watching it more. You don't have that like pit in your stomach all day, especially last week, Sunday Night Football, having to wait to watch your team all Sunday. I feel like I enjoy it more when my team's on a bye week. Now, I don't want a bye week every week, but like you get to just enjoy the football and not have that kind of looming over you when you have your favorite team playing.
And I think it's even better as a Jaguars fan, it's better than having the island game of doom.
Yes.
You know, like it's better than having the Monday Night Football game or the Thursday Night Football game upcoming. Because if the game that was previously like this game that we just had with the Patriots and the Bills, the game was great. Now it's about the Chiefs and the Jaguars living up to that and keeping the trend going forward. And as a Jaguars fan, the last time they were on Monday Night Football was the worst football I've ever seen. So I think that being on a bye as a fan is the best thing to do, because now you can just watch everybody else. You can slander other teams if you want. You can put out so many reckless things about every other team, and you can live with it for a week.
Exactly. I'm just looking at like they suck. This team sucks. These guys all suck. You feel like a king for a week. Let's get to that Sunday night game though, or excuse that we just saw. Patriots at Bills. Patriots as 8.5-point dogs on the road in Buffalo. Go in and win 23-20 on a last-second Andres Borregales field goal that, I don't know about you, JP, but I thought that one was probably going to be good from about 75-ish, the way he hit that thing. That went over the uprights from 52 yards out. What was your number from this Sunday night upset?
My number was 11, and that's how many penalties the Bills had tonight. And I think that you could go with a lot of numbers here. And the biggest one was just the Bills continuing to shoot themselves in the foot. They had 2 fumbles offensively. We mentioned the penalties. And offensively for the Bills, it just felt uneven. It felt like just an off game for them. They couldn't really get the run game going, which I actually was kind of surprised at. There were some big runs that were popping off, but then just nothing really came of that. And then I think the Patriots did a good job of wadding up all the signature calls and all the signature stuff the Bills really like to do offensively. The first thing is they really like to get into those 4 strong with the bunch, and then James Cook to the strength of the bunch, and they'll run mesh. They'll run crossing routes. And the Patriots played a lot of zone. They wanted to defend that really well, and they did. And they forced Josh Allen to be a little bit more creative mode than he really likes to be, especially at this point. He wanted to be more of a distributor, but they weren't being able to really get to that point with that offense. So it was a really good game plan by Vrabel and the Patriots. But man, this was a welcome to the national light performance for Drake May and this Patriots offense.
That was the biggest takeaway for me. It was just that, if you hadn't watched Drake May the past few weeks, you may not have realized what kind of ball this guy was playing. I mean, he looked, obviously outside of Jaden Daniels, who already is a rookie, but like he looked like the best of the year 2 quarterbacks. It's like the guy who actually, we're predicting all these leaps, the guy who's actually made that leap and who actually now looks like a true franchise quarterback. And that really is just missing the pieces. Really, if he just has playmakers, guys who can separate consistently on the outside, all of a sudden he's, upper echelon at the position in the NFL sort of quarterback. And in this one, you just saw not only a lot of the outside of structure stuff, but then the whole shot he had against cover 2 at that final drive is just kind of confident throw that takes the level of arm talent that, you're probably your average to below average quarterbacks in the NFL. Just they aren't hitting that in that situation. It's a big boy throw, and Drake May made a lot of them in this game.
And even on that, I think it was that same drive where the defender comes in. I think it's defensive tackle, free runner comes in on rollout. He's stiff arming the defensive tackle with the ball still in his right hand. Still gets the ball off. I thought he was going to get sacked, which would be a huge negative at that point in the game. Gets the ball off to Stephon Diggs, and they get a first down on that play. That was, and again, I'm not saying it trying to compare the players 1-to-1, but that was a Josh Allen type of play. That was something that you see Josh Allen normally do, and it felt like Drake May really sort of felt in his own element in the second half. I think the Bills showed him a lot of different stuff when it came to pressures, when it came to playing man coverage and using Shaq Thompson as a spy. They used Milano as a spy. Terrell Bernard was spying. But what really changed in the second half was Drake May was just being more distributor in the second half when he broke the pocket. And he was playing so well, diagnosing blitzes, diagnosing pressures. I actually thought he did that pretty well last year as a rookie. So this constant upward tick, this upward trajectory of him continuing to stack games really has me excited for what the Patriots can be.
Yeah, he finished as 22 of 30, 273 yards. No real running game to speak of for them in this one. Less than 4 yards per carry on the ground. And then you still have the fumble problem that is the Patriots running back. Antonio Gibson fumbles a kick return, unfortunately goes out for the game on that one. Ramondre Stevenson fumbles another one.
Yeah,
if they could just eliminate that, they might have a few more wins on the schedule too. But this Patriots team, with how easy their schedule is, I saw this week that I think it was Aaron Schatz tweeted out that the rest of the way, the only team they play that heading into this week was top 12 in DVOA is the Buffalo Bills, and they beat them once. So they don't face a good team really the rest of the way in, and we know how bad the rest of that AFC East is with the Jets and the Dolphins looking like two of the worst teams in the NFL. I think this Patriots team at 3-2, I think they're making the playoffs.
Especially with how weak the AFC is. We'll get to the AFC North teams here in a sec, but we might only have one AFC North team that makes the playoffs this year. You're not going to have the same volume of AFC West teams. You might only get 2 instead of 3. You're not going to get the AFC South into the playoffs. This could be the year where, in the first year of Mike Vrabel, they really turn it around and, led by a quarterback who is really on that upward trajectory, make the playoffs. And it'd be a really fun story, because if Drake May keeps playing like this, I would take the Patriots toe-to-toe against any of the other teams in the conference.
Next 3 weeks: Saints, Titans, Browns. Your 6-2, excuse me, New England Patriots coming to a city near you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to the rest of the slate right after this.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah.
Broncos at Eagles up next here. Broncos win 21-17. They sneak away as 4.5-point dogs in this one on the road. The under hits there. 43.5 points was the under there. My number, it's 6. That's the amount of carries Saquon Barkley had in this game. 6 carries for Saquon Barkley. The Eagles had a 50-11 pass run split. 50 dropbacks to only 11 called runs in this game. And they only scored 17 points. Now, it's Denver Broncos defense. It's very tough. And obviously, early downs, they were putting 8 in the box. They were begging Jalen Hurts to attack down the football field. And they got what they wanted. I think it was a smart game plan. Trust your corners. I said I thought they could hit some on these corners. They did still hit some. But just when you completely rely on Jalen Hurts and he takes 6 sacks the way he did in this game, your offense is just going to come and go. And they didn't score the final 28 minutes and 23 seconds of this game. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't. And Denver Broncos kind of stole one. It looked like they were going to come out to a big lead. It was 17-3, I believe, at one point in time. Denver Broncos come back and steal one from Philly.
So I have a lot of thoughts on the Eagles offense and where they've sort of struggled. The biggest thing is their run game is not nearly as potent as it was on early downs last year compared to this year. They still, before this game, they are still one of the most run heavy teams on early downs in the NFL. They were 31st in early down run rate or early down pass rate last season. They're 31st this season before this game. But the difference is last season they were first in EPA per carry on early downs. This year they're 13th. That is a massive drop for this offense. And I believe Diana Rossini had a quote in this leading up to the game in her notebook that said AJ Brown wasn't, I think it was a rival coach that said AJ Brown isn't worried about the fact that he's not getting targets. It's when he's getting targeted. And I think that's important because they use AJ Brown and Devontae Smith as get out of jail free cards, as like bailout, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. We need something to move the chains. AJ Brown, go ball. AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, go ball. Leading up to this game, AJ Brown's deep target rate was, I believe, 21% according to Next Gen Stats, which is up 7% from last year. Devontae Smith is up 4% in his deep target rate, and it just feels like this offense needed to get those bailout plays just to move the ball. So against Denver, they lean heavy into the RPO stuff. That was the most RPO heavy I think I've seen the Eagles offense since 2022. And it was working. It helped them get out to the lead. You saw a little bit more quick game, a little more in breakers. They're doing a lot more stuff with play action. That's how they jumped out to 17-3. But the problem is they weren't running the ball in these RPOs. And even when they were running the ball, they were still not good at it. I think they needed to run the ball more, but they're just not good at it right now, especially with Landon Dickerson out. Matt Toth came in, and you could tell that there was a difference in the amount of push. And that's the biggest problem. They always knew they could regenerate, they could replenish along the offensive line because you'd have Mailata, you'd have Lane Johnson, and Landon Dickerson, regardless of anything else that happens. Now Landon Dickerson's gone. It's hard to replace both guards. So I think this game really came down to the fact that they cannot run the ball. And they chose not to run the ball. You could tell in the pass split. All those RPOs were RPOs and not just straight runs because they can't run the ball. And that gave Denver enough time to get back into this game, even when offensively they didn't play that great.
Yeah, the guard position right now is just not what it was last year. We kind of touched on it, Landon Dickerson being banged up heading into this week and then getting rolled up, and we'll see what the diagnosis is of him, but it didn't look great with him limping off the football field already as banged up as he is. So if you're rolling with backups at left guard now, Tyler Steen at right guard, who's been very up and down, you're just not the same unit, unfortunately. That's just the way offensive line goes. They were so good last year because you went 5 across. You had 5 guys who in the running game were winning their matchups damn near every single time. That's how you get a 2,000-yard rusher in Saquon Barkley. Saquon's on pace for 907 yards right now. 907 rushing yards. You're not even on pace for 1,000 behind that offensive line as a pure bell cow in the NFL with a running threat next to you at quarterback and Jalen Hurts. That's almost hard to do as a play caller, in my opinion, even with the injuries up front. They need to scrap whatever they've been doing. This is a go back to the drawing board sort of moment, in my opinion, because you are still too talented to have Saquon not as productive as he is. You just flat out are. Maybe you're not going to be as dominant as you were last year. That's difficult to replicate, yes. But to be as inept on 907 yards, that just should not be possible.
Also, when it comes to this Eagles offense, they have lost part of the reason why they're so good against too high. They punish light boxes because their biggest thing was if you move, even without A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith playing well or getting targets, you had to account for the +1 in the run game with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts only had 2 carries in this game. Jalen Hurts, leading up to this game, only has 4 designed carries this season. I think it's 5 design carries. Now, a large part of that could be because they're trying to hold off on the hits that he takes because this is the early part of the season. But again, with the run game with just Saquon not working as well as it is, do you risk like breaking that glass in case of emergency? Because this is not a sustainable way to live. You cannot have Jalen Hurts dropping back 50 times a game and say this is a winning recipe for football games.
Yeah, honestly, that's subjecting him to almost more hits because he's good at protecting himself in the open field. He's not great at doing so as much in the pocket. And in this one, the pass protection wasn't disastrous, but it's the Broncos. You can't sit back on the Broncos defensive line for 3.5, 4 seconds and just think that you're going to have all day. That's kind of how it went in this one with their pass rush. Nick Benito getting 2.5 sacks his own right. They have too many guys that can get off blocks if you give them that long. What were your thoughts on the final drive, though, for the Broncos? The intentional grounding flag that gets picked up, and then the late hit on Zach Bond that gets flagged. That was kind of bang. Obviously, it was late after the whistle, but those ended up being massive calls in retrospect.
The intentional grounding getting picked up is so funny because Bo Nix did the same thing earlier in the game and got called for an intentional grounding. And on this one late in the game, they didn't even announce that they were picking the flag up, that there was no flag. They just like quietly went and like grabbed the flag and were like, oh, never happened. It was like you got zapped with the thing from Men in Black that made you forget stuff. It's like they zapped you with one of those.
I was on the quad box and I had the audio on. And all of a sudden it just says 3rd and 6. And I was like, 3rd and 6. It was
what just happened?
Intentional grounding. Like they flagged it. What are you talking about?
Yes, the neuralizer. They had the neuralizer for everybody. Like, all right, that never happened. Yeah. There is no war in Bossing say. There is nothing happened there. The Zach Bond play, I get why you throw that flag. That is technically by the rules a flag. But when football is happening so fast and all this such a bang play, I don't know. It felt kind of ticky-tack, but you can also argue that for a player, it's a veteran in Zach Bond, one of the leaders of the team, he's got to be a little smarter in that situation. So I definitely see both sides of it, but the intentional grounding just getting picked up at the end was a lot more egregious than the unnecessary roughness.
2 more things I want to touch on, and then we'll get to the Bucs at Seahawks. A.J. Brown stopping on the go ball. Did you see it? It wasn't really a go ball. It was kind of like a weird, because he kind of gets rerouted from the slot pretty heavily, and then he breezes past, I believe it was Talanoa Hufanga. And it took a while. So, like, I think that's why he slows down as soon as he gets past Hufanga, but Jalen Hurts had a while. And Jalen Hurts saw it, goes at A.J. Brown, but as soon as he got past him, he basically throttles all the way down and looks back at the quarterback and then has to get back going. It's like you can't tweet out your Tumblr posts right after a game and then get a wide open target and stop. You can't do both if you're A.J. Brown, in my opinion.
Yeah, that one was really weird. And I said it after it happened. I'm like, did he just stop on the route? Like, you never see A.J. Brown just kind of just give up in the middle of the route. And it was weird because that was a touchdown. Like, that was a big play taken off the board. But that felt like a microcosm of what the Eagles were as a passing offense in this game, especially in the second half. So many big plays taken off the board. There was, I believe it was a big, like, 50-yard throwing catch to Devontae Smith that was wiped off because of a penalty. I think there was another big play on an RPO that was an eligible man downfield. And then at the end, the Hail Mary, you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both trying to catch the ball and both
I think AJ broke it up.
I think A.J. Brown broke up that pass. He broke up the game winner. So it's just those type of things where you're just like, man, that is really tough for the Eagles. But for the Broncos, this is a statement win. This is a statement win for their defense, who we said leading up, we said this season, if the defense can keep you in enough games, I think Sean Payton will figure it out. I think the offense can figure it out. And that's what happened in this game. The defense started sending a little bit more pressure, and they were able to get home. Nick Benito's playing like a defensive player of the year caliber player. And then I think Bo Nix had an adventure of a day. He was terrible for like the first 3.5 quarters. And then you just get some really good plays by Cortland Sutton. You get some nice yards after the catch by Evan Ingram. Really what stood out is those guys, the others, like the supporting cast for the Broncos, winning after the catch and winning, in Courtland Sutton's case, winning at the catch point against a really tough group of DBs, against a team that really can tackle. So J.K. Dobbins was running hard. You had some good R.J. Harvey plays. This was a statement win for the supporting cast, being able to lift up their quarterback even when he wasn't playing very well.
Yeah, I thought Nick's was his normal inconsistent self until that fourth quarter. And the best thing you could say about him the first three quarters is that he didn't put the ball in harm's way. That he basically did not make the game-ending mistake. And then the fourth quarter, I thought he was lights out. I don't think you could do too much better than he did in that fourth quarter. That was fantastic. The 3rd and 15 conversion to Courtland Sutton was a throw that, well before he breaks it off, you got to throw it like that because of how the windows get on third downs. That was like a throw where it's like, okay, that's progression. That's Bo Nix actually rising to the occasion for once this season. So the Broncos, massive win for them. That especially with the way the Chargers are going in that division. We'll see obviously how the Chiefs fare tomorrow night, but they, to me, feel like the biggest threat to the Chiefs right now in the West. If anyone, I think the Chargers just are a very flawed team right now, whereas the Broncos, it's really just if you get good Bo Nix, they're right there with anyone else in the AFC right now.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the one thing I did want to mention. Sean Payton going for 2 backwards.
That was so cool. It was so awesome.
It ended up not really mattering, obviously, because they kicked the go-ahead, another field goal after that. But, I mean, it kind of did because we don't know how it would have played out after that. But all analytics people would say when they were down 2 scores, which they were down 17-3, and they scored the first touchdown, that's when you use your go for 2 play. Because then if you really want to win in regulation, then you know you have it, and you have it later. If you miss it, you got to get 2 more scores to go ahead. He just goes for it willy-nilly after they get the second touchdown. To would have tied it up. They kicked the extra point, but instead he goes for 2. Sean Payton's going to do his thing. But that's like, it felt like he just knew he had to play. He knew he had to read because they targeted Keely Ringo immediately.
Endlessly.
Yes. And when he got that one-on-one, it's like, okay, we're going to win that matchup.
And even when he did go for 2, when they kicked the field goal, it puts them at 21-17, forcing the Eagles to go and get a touchdown. If he had kicked the extra point, it's 20-17, and maybe the Eagles approach that game-winning drive a lot differently, knowing they just have to get into Jake Elliott's field goal range. So it was also knowing your opponent and knowing how good Jake Elliott is from distance. You're forcing them to go get a touchdown, which I think is really smart, and I really wonder if more teams are going to start doing it.
I do think so, just because I hate overtime. Please end it in regulation. All right, let's get to the Tampa Bay Bucks at Seattle Seahawks. Bucks win as 3-point dogs on the road in Seattle. The over hits there, obviously, because it wasn't 73.5. This was the best quarterback game I saw all season. This is what, when they got drafted number 1 and number 3 overall back in 2018, you would not have been necessarily surprised if this game had happened. 3 years ago, when they were both on the Panthers, right, you would have been very surprised if I told you this game had happened. But my number from this one, it's 158.3, because that was Baker Mayfield's passer rating under pressure in this game. He goes 7 for 7, 103 yards and a touchdown under pressure. And Mayfield had maybe the best game of his NFL career, in my opinion.
Baker Mayfield has taken such a big step in his quarterbacking this year, especially when the Bucks have needed him to. The under pressure stuff really stands out because it's not just delivering passes while he's getting hit. He's scrambling more. He's making those plays with his feet as well as he is with his arm. It just feels like he's playing with a lot more confidence in himself within the offense. I think we saw a lot of it with Jared Goff last year in a different way, where Jared Goff knew the offense and fully mastered it at that point. He was going like, I know exactly where to go against any coverage with this ball. They're not going to be able to stop him. This feels like what Baker Mayfield is doing right now, and it's really fun to see him just rip these passes downfield. I think, according to Next Gen Stats, Baker Mayfield on passes 10-plus yards downfield was 9 of 11 for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns. he was eviscerating the Seahawks downfield. He was constantly hunting big plays. And you saw Emeka Egbuka catch a few. Tez Johnson has some really nice plays in this game. And you could just see that he was starting to heat up. And again, it just makes Baker Mayfield the most entertaining quarterback in the NFL because you know he's never going to let a play die. And that's part of what makes Baker Mayfield derogatory is also what makes Baker Mayfield complimentary. He's always going to try and make the play. And it really showed up in this game when they needed it because Sam Darnold was cooking on the other side.
Yeah, so the quarterbacks in this game, Baker goes 29 of 33, 379 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's only 4 incompletions on the day for Baker. Darnold on the other side goes 28 of 34, 341 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception that was unfortunately not quite his fault. Tipped at the line, goes to Levante David, ends up being the game-changing, game-losing interception there with less than a minute left in the fourth quarter. Sucks that it had to end that way. If any game could have gone to overtime, this would have been one that would have been fun to go to overtime. But I think it's safe to say Clint Kubiak's going to be scrapping the Jalen Milroe package after this week.
Yeah, it's always just the little stuff with Seattle. In every game this year, it's always been the little things. It's always been turnovers. It's been against San Francisco, first week of the season. You have Jalen Milroe in for 1 play on the opening drive and then never in for the rest of the game. Sam Darnold also fumbled on the potential game-winning drive. On this one, they just couldn't get off the field. And I think this is one of those games where there were a lot of trade rumors around Rick Woolen, and this was one of those games where you're like, I think this will kind of cool those off because Nehemiah Pritchett and Josh Jobe were not ready. They were not ready at all for Emeka Egbuka, who was, again, like, I think he is the leading candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year at this point. Just incredible. Like, I'm honestly, Brian Hartline should use that game as recruiting tape and be like, hey, if you want to come play at Ohio State, you'll end up like these guys. You know, like that was one of those type of games. JSN was incredible on the other side. But this was one of those games where if you're Seattle, you're going to be kicking yourself at the end of the season because, I mean, the Seahawks are still in it when it comes to the division. They can still win the NFC West, especially with the 49ers. I know they won on Thursday, but they're constantly coming back from injury. And you always play the Rams close. So they're going to be in it when it comes to the division. But now you're worrying about seeding. And if you're not winning the division, the Bucs already have the tiebreaker over you.
Yeah, the 49ers have already completed the West sweep. They beat everyone else in the West. The Seahawks, unfortunately, now 2 losses that they're going to be picking themselves. That week 1 loss to the 49ers, now this one. They look like a much better team than I gave them credit for. This offense is absolutely humming. Jack Smith-Njigba was like a true number 1. I think as high as you could have been on him heading into this season, I think he's exceeded all expectations. He goes for 8 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown in this game. And like you said, those Ohio State wide receivers, man, they come into the league ready to play. Another guy who came in the league ready to play that I was excited that we got to see at least in this one, Tez Johnson, dude. 150-pounder, making plays, 4 catches, 59 yards. And if you can't touch him, you can't get hurt.
And the thing that really stood out with Tez Johnson is not only is he fast, but he can throttle down quick.
Yeah.
He can stop too. And it's not, I think that's such a big difference for speedster wide receivers. If you can't stop quickly, you're not going to be able to play because you can only run go routes. But Tez Johnson was winning on, they had him with design jet sweeps. I think they had a design end around for him. They slid him out the backfield some on passes, but his speed and his ability to stop is really going to help an offense that just needs some more juice, especially while they're waiting for Mike Evans to get back. But it was really fun watching him play. And I think he fits so well into this offense with Baker Mayfield playing the way he is.
I can't believe he lasted the 7th, even if you're just using him as, and I think that's all you really can use him as, is a 3rd down, 2-minute specialist. He can only be in there in situations where you're really not running the football. Because if he has to run block, I mean, it might look like, remember when Tank Dell had to run block at the goal line his rookie year in the NFL. Gosh, too much scouting brain in my mind. But you don't want him run blocking. He's not going to run block. He can't run block. But if it's man coverage, it's like a 3rd and 7. You need a guy to win. Des Johnson's going to win a lot of routes. The guy gets open. So I think it's just a nice feather in Josh Grizzard's cap to have, and deployed it well in this game. I mean, wasn't on the field that many snaps and gets 59 yards out of it. He's going to be an interesting player to watch and how he's deployed for this Bucs team. And the Bucs, man, my pick of them being the 1 seed when it's all said and done, the NFC, they're making me look smart with all these close wins. Now it might not come to fruition, but they seemingly know how to win games this year in a way that just looks different, I feel like, from years past with this Tampa Bay Bucs team.
I feel like all their wins have been 1-score wins this year. I think they've all had 1-score wins. The 1-score game luck has gone the way of Tampa, which is sort of balancing out the fact that everybody's injured.
Yes, it is. And that's why they didn't have the right side of their line in this one and still got it done. All right, let's get to Dolphins at Panthers. An interesting one because Dolphins ran out to a 17-0 lead. We thought, given the way Panthers games have gone this year, that it was going to be a blowout, unfortunately, and it wasn't. Panthers roar back, win 27-24 as 1.5-point home dogs. The over hits in that one. What's your number from a wild game in Carolina?
My number is 206 yards on the ground for Rico Dowdle, which is a career high. 206 yards by the Carolina Panthers on the ground without Chuba Hubbard. I'm sorry, this has to end for Miami. You cannot go on with Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier after this game. So after the Dolphins went up 17-0, here's the remaining drives for the rest of the game. Punt, halftime, punt, touchdown, punt. That's not going to get it done. That's not going to get done against anybody, but including the Carolina Panthers, who we said leading up to this game have the worst defense that we have seen this year in the NFL. On top of that, the Panthers had the worst rushing defense I have ever seen in the NFL. Mike, do you know how many yards the Dolphins ran for in this game?
How many?
They ran for 19 yards on 14 carries. What?
How do they do that? Because they were one of the best rush offenses through the first 4 weeks this season.
They were incredibly efficient on the ground. But I think this game was very much a sad state of what Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel have done personnel-wise with this team. Jonas Vainai just does not look ready. You can't pass pro with him. And then if you're not running the ball effectively, that makes him a net negative on the field. You had Darren Waller, who looked incredible for the first half. 5 targets, 5 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. Second half, don't target him at all. No targets. And I think Tua said after the game, they kept clouding the middle of the field, so they were forced to check it down all the time. The Dolphins have been doing that. That has always been the answer that Tua has given after a Dolphins loss for the last 3 years.
It's so true.
It's the same thing. They're just like, they
just
cover
if
the
you want
the field.
You're DC facing the Dolphins, all you got to do is scout the press conferences. All you got to do is Tua to tell you.
He's going to tell you what happens. You cover the middle of the field, you shut down that offense. And that is an indictment on the coaching. The fact that you gave up 206 rushing yards, 239. Trevor Etienne had more rushing yards by himself than the Dolphins had in this entire game. But from the Panthers' perspective, I thought they played really well in the second half. Their defense played really well, obviously. Derek Brown was making some splash plays in the run and pass game. It gets overshadowed because Tetairoa McMillan is incredible, but Nick Scorton, I think, has actually turned into somewhat of a quality player for this team, especially when you get him stunted inside. They stem him inside on passing downs. He plays with a lot of effort in the run game. And this was really just about, we sort of saw the same thing with the Eagles in the second half as we saw at the Dolphins. If you can't run the ball and sustain drives and drain clock, you're going to give the other team more cracks at the bat. You give them enough times at bat, they're going to finally hit one. They're going to finally get somebody to swing. And that's what happened in this game. Shout out to Eric Collins, who was on play-by-play.
Oh my
made
gosh.
the game so much more entertaining.
Has he done play-by-play before?
Yes, he's done football play-by-play. He did a UCF game a few years back. They went viral for. I'll see if I can find the clip, but he's incredible. I want him calling every single. I want him to be a football play-by-play guy.
Dude, his energy was off the charts. It put Gus Johnson to shame. Honestly, it was like prime Gus Johnson. Gus has gotten tame. He's on the downslide. This was for a Dolphins-Panthers game. The guy was treated like it was Game 7 of the World Series. I mean, the energy, truly incredible. I had to look up who it was mid-game. I was like, who is this? He keeps taking it to 10.
He's so good.
Incredible. I need more of it. That's all you really need from a play-by-play announcer. I don't need you to describe what's going on in the game. I'm watching what's going on in the game. I need you to get me hyped, and he was. Some things from the Dolphins. I cannot believe how bad their first and second round picks were, just in terms of like on the football field right now. I'm not damning either to being bad players long term. I'm not dumb. I know how this works. That sometimes guys just aren't quite ready. But when they drafted, a nose tackle to basically, it felt like we're drafting for this year, because I don't think anyone would have said Kenneth Grant's the 13th best player in this draft class, right? Like they were probably better players in the football field on the board right then, but it was like, hey, our biggest needs nose tackle. We need a guy to come and play right away. He can't hold up against double teams. He just flat out can't right now. He was getting his ass kicked in this game against, was objectively an okay Panthers offensive line. I think it's probably, if you're ranking it, like a dead average offensive line. 16th.
Yeah, they're very good. They're very good at run blocking. They've been terrible at pass pro this year, but they're really good at run blocking. And
he got his ass kicked. And then on the flip side, Jonas Avianai is just like, he cannot go one-on-one in the pass game. He just looks like he's never played on the left side before. Like his footwork and hand use, like they don't go in sync, and just so many ugly reps on his tape. And so for all you gave up, you traded up for Jonas Avianai, you drafted Kenneth Grant with 13th pick. I think it was 13th. You drafted him before Tyler Warren. For this to happen, for them to just be flat out, not only just not impact players, like liabilities on both sides of the ball, feels like a fireable offense, because you're going to bottom out this year. And this is the roster you constructed. You paid so much to assemble, and you're just you had no plan B. You had no transition plan for, when Tyreek Hill was going to age out, when Teron Armstead was going to age out. Your transition plan was absolute ass. It just was. It just was not good enough if you're Chris Grier. And unfortunately, you're not set up for success for the next 2 to 3 years now because of it.
Yeah, Tua's I think Tua's dead cap next year, or cap hit next year, is $56 million. Like, this is not a tenable situation for Mike McDaniel or Chris Grier. And Chris Grier has been with the Dolphins for a long time. He was in their scouting department for a long time. He has been with the Dolphins for a really long time, and this has not been a good team. This has not been a sustainably good team in his iteration with Mike McDaniel as the head coach. From the Panthers' perspective, I actually do think Jimmy Horn Jr. had some really fun plays. On the game-winning drive, he made a great catch on 4th down, where I was like, oh my God, Bryce, what are you doing? Which Bryce Young, 2 really, really bad plays in the first half. The fumble where he just kind of drops the ball is a really bad panic play, and something that, again, I know referring back to college Bryce might be a thing. It might just be a thing of the past. College Bryce Young doesn't fumble with a dude running at him. And then the interception, his feet were all out of whack, and he sails it. But I think in the second half, you kept fighting back, kept clawing back. He made some really big throws. The touchdown to Leggett was really nice. Xavier Leggett needed that as well. And again, it's just this Dolphins team. This has to be it. I don't know if they fire Mike McDaniel or Chris Grier tomorrow, but you can't bring them back next year, regardless of what happens to finish the season.
Yeah. that really was the full spectrum Bryce Young game. You got pretty much every potential play of Bryce in terms of bad, all the way to the best of the best that you'll see from Bryce on some of like the corners and the goal line fade to Xavier Legette. Like he had some nice throws in that game, but also I'm just like, what the hell was that, Bryce? I will say Rico Dowdle, 206 yards, take it full circle to your number. I love stories like Rico Dowdle because he was not even a starter his final year of college. He was a running back by committee, but was second fiddle actually in terms of carries on 2019 South Carolina. Do you have any clue who got more carries than him on 2019 South Carolina?
2019 South Carolina.
And if you know this, you're an absolute sicko.
I don't know. My first guess was Mike Davis out of college at that point?
I think he was already.
Okay. Dang, I don't know.
Tavian Feaster.
Oh, I remember Tavian Feaster. That's crazy. What?
Where he is, who knows? But Rico Dowdle's racking up 200 plus, and Will Muschamp's probably regretting not giving him a few more touches back in the day. All right, let's move on. We spent enough time on Dolphins, Panthers. Let's get on to Titans, Cardinals. From one great team to another. Tennessee Titans get their first win of the season, leaving the New York Jets as your lone winless team, actually, because that's also the Saints won their first game of the season. 22-21 over the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals lose as 8.5-point favorites. 2 8.5-point favorites went down. The Buffalo Bills losing on Sunday Night Football. The over hits there, 41.5. My number, it's 2 minutes and 12 seconds. That was the time left when Arizona ran the ball on a 3rd and 8 when they were up by 2 in their own territory, with the Titans having 1 timeout left. They ran the ball on a 3rd and 8 up by 2 in their own territory, with the Titans having 1 timeout left, with 2 minutes, 12 seconds left. Let me repeat that. That is one of the craziest things when they ran that play, I'm just like, they're losing this game. That is surrendering. That's just not, I don't know what was going on there. If you have a guy you are paying $50+ million to named Kyler Murray, and you're not letting him throw in that situation, I don't know what the hell I don't know why you're paying him that much money. And I don't know what the hell that decision was by Jonathan Gannon, but that was an all-time just throw the game away. Not saying that they convert if they throw, but you got to at least try. You got to at least do something, because 2 minutes, 12 seconds. Think about this. If you throw a pass, 5 seconds, 6 seconds come off the clock. Next play is a punt. You're not giving them an extra timeout. The 2-minute warning hits after the punt. Run versus pass there is almost indifferent. It's a difference of like 7 seconds in terms of how much time comes off the clock. That was patently absurd in my eyes that they did that. And, well, they lose the game because of it.
So remember when I said leading up to the season, the Cardinals only play 15 minutes of good football.
Dude, could not be more. That was this game.
You never know when those 15 minutes are, but they only play 15 minutes of good football. First quarter, they go up basically 21-6. Well, their second drive of the second quarter, they go up 21-3. Since going up 21-3, they go punt, halftime, fumble, coming at the first drive at a halftime, fumble, punt, fumble again, punt, and they lose the game. As someone who was incredibly high on the Cardinals going into this year, I'm ready to be done with this team. You cannot lose this game to this team the way that you did and be considered a serious contender for the playoffs. I don't know what's going on with their offense. I don't know if it's a Kyler thing. I don't know if it's a Drew Petzing thing. I don't know if it's the offensive line has played poorly. But everybody, like, this is a clean house type of loss. You were up 21-3. Emery DeMercado is going to get bashed for dropping the ball before he got to the end zone. And yes, that would have made it 28-6. But even if it made it 28-6, we saw the Panthers come back and almost beat them the same thing. And it's just this team they can't run the ball. First of all, I know they didn't have Trey Benson and they didn't have James Conner. They still can't run the ball effectively. They didn't really use Kyler on the ground. I actually thought Marvin Harrison Jr. played really well, but it just felt like they kind of turtled in the second half, expecting the Titans to just roll over and die. And that's not what good football teams do. Good football teams make the Titans look like how the Titans have looked for the past 3 games. The Texans just shut out the Titans. So I'm just done with this team and how volatile their offense is.
They did have 3 of the stupidest fumbles I think I've ever seen in a game. They were Kyler Murray getting hit in the face mask when he didn't think the snap was coming when they were in Titans territory. It was 3rd and 12. They probably would have kicked a field goal even if they didn't convert there, but like points off the board. DeMercado, which I still think was probably actually a touchdown. Like
it was close.
Like it was close enough that karmically he probably shouldn't get a touchdown. Like you can't be that dumb after watching Adonai Mitchell do what he did last week and do it in basically what would have been a game-ending touchdown there. You just can't do it. That fumble. And then Daedron Taylor-Demerson picks off Cam Ward, rolls over, bounces the ball against the ground, pops out. 3 people like batted around, like 3 Cardinals.
Kicked into the end zone.
Into the end zone where Tyler Lockett recovered it. So, like, any of those plays don't happen, the Cardinals win this game. Any of the 3, like I said, dumbest fumbles you ever see don't happen, the Cardinals win this game. And probably if they go for it on that 3rd and 8 and actually pass instead of run, the Cardinals probably still win this game because their defense isn't completely demoralized and they don't get Cam Ward hitting him over the top to Calvin Ridley, which was an awesome throw. And Cam Ward deserved that win. He played probably his best game. What he was doing down the stretch is like, he's your guy. Just give him people who will finish plays because he has so many plays still left on the football field. Their receivers are just atrocious. The worst receiving core in the NFL. It has to get better there in Tennessee. It will get better there in Tennessee. But Cam Ward looked like a guy. But this one's more about the Arizona Cardinals and just, you can't lose this game and deserve any respect in the NFC West. You are the worst team in the NFC West right now by a good margin, it seems like, at least with how the rest of the division is playing. They shouldn't be, but you got to talk about them like that because, shoot, they just lost to the Titans at home.
And they lost to the Titans at home while also beating themselves. Again, like the Titans beat them. Yeah. But you also had, like you said, the 3 dumbest fumbles I've ever seen. The coaching and the offense just still feels so disjointed that it kind of ruins another really good defensive performance. I think the defense still played their guts out. Like you get Will Johnson back and he played better and it helped like slow down that offense, but you can't have them out on the field all the time. So it's just, at this point, like I said, as someone who was very high on this team, who was saying Jonathan Gannon would win Coach of the Year preseason, I'm ready to be done with this team because you can't lose to the Titans. And not only are you the worst team in the NFC West, you're not a serious playoff contender losing to the Titans the way that they did.
Kyler Murray's cap hit next year, $53.2 million. If they trade him, they get $35 million of cap relief. Could very well be an option for them given how this is going in Arizona. And if it really does turn out to be a worst case scenario, because flat out, they haven't made the playoffs in 4 years. It's time to put up or shut up there in Arizona. Let's get to Washington at Los Angeles Chargers. They roll in Jaden Daniels' first game back from that ankle injury, 27-10. They cover as 2.5-point dogs and then some. The under hits there was 48.5. What's your number from this one?
My number from this game is 150 total yards by Bill Krosky-Merritt. And this game, I'm going to talk about the Chargers in a little bit, but I really want to talk about what the Commanders did offensively because it felt like this was the Commanders' offense that we had been expecting to see from the beginning of the season. It felt like we were missing sort of the run game was lacking. You had Jaden Daniels going out with injury. You had Terry McLaurin not playing. He still didn't play in this game, but Terry McLaurin kind of being MIA. But this felt like the true Washington Commanders offense that we saw last year. Jaden Daniels played incredible in this game. I think some of the numbers won't really show it, but the fact that he scrambled 4 times for 50 yards, I believe. He scrambled 4 times for 50 yards, and that is the most that he's had this season since week 1, actually. He had 37 yards on scrambles, and that is such a big part of their offense, him scrambling. And you could tell that the Chargers were really worried about it with the way that they played defense, the way they covered Daniels. I thought the run game was working really well, especially in the way that Cliff manipulated the Chargers via alignment. It wasn't like they're just lining up and kicking the Chargers' butts. You really don't do that. But it was through formation and through getting guys out of the box, spinning guys into the box, and making sure you won with numbers instead of just trying to overwhelm them with sheer strength. And then I thought Daniels made a couple of really nice throws that really stood out. The throw to Luke McCaffrey to tie the game up before halftime was incredible. And then there are just a couple of nice over routes that he's just firing in there and getting first downs on. And I was really impressed with his ability to just keep the offense on track, even when he I still felt like there was some meat on the bone left for them offensively as a passing game.
Mm-hmm.
But this was about what you wanted to see if you're a Commanders fan, wanting to see the offense take another step forward into what you saw from 2024.
And no Terry McLaurin in this game against a good Chargers defense. And outside of I thought just knocking a little rust off to start the game, down the stretch, it was just carve them up. I mean, that last drive, which was like a 96-yard touchdown drive, a 90-plus yard touchdown drive to really cap it off. I mean, they took Justin Herbert out after that. Was big boy drive. I mean, it was like a franchise quarterback saying, hey, I'm going to go out and win this game. And what Cliff did in the running game in this was just mastery. And you have a guy, you have a difference maker. I think that's the thing, is they finally leaned into Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt because he is far and away not only their most dynamic, but I think he has the best vision of any of their running backs too. I mean, his ability to press, set up blocks, and then get out and create on his own. You saw it on numerous occasions. The very first run in this game, it's a counter play to the left side. You got a guard pulling through a hole, and there's really nothing there. The guard kind of gets stood up against the left tackle, and the left tackles kind of gets stood up. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt just goes through both. He has left shoulder touching the guard that's pulling, right shoulder touching the tackle, and he still gets through there for an 8-yard gain. That's a guy who's willing to run between the tackles, willing to grind out tough yards, but then also has the juice once you get him out on the edge that he can make big plays. So 111 yards on 14 carries. Yeah, he has the fumble in this one, but he was a big-time difference maker in this one.
Krosky-Merritt also had 6 missed tackles forced for an additional 50 yards after contact, which is the most the Chargers have given up in both numbers this year. And this game really defensively, it just felt like when it rains, it pours. I guess when you say for the Chargers defense, this was their worst tackling performance in a long time. And the play that really stood out, I think it was on the touchdown drive to make it 20-10. It was 3rd and 10, and Jaden Daniels has to force it to a check down and Jeremy Nichols. And I believe one of the corners defensive backs, I think it was Jasir Taylor, comes up, tries to make the tackle on him. He misses the tackle. Jeremy McNichols gets 12 yards on 3rd and 10. That's the sort of play where you're like, yeah, it's just not your night. It's just one of those games for the Chargers. They really missed Khalil Mack in pass rush. And I think that's something that really stood out. It was Jaden Daniels was not made uncomfortable by the Chargers pass rush. He really had all time in the world to throw. I believe at one point in the game, the Chargers had 9 pressures, but 5 of them came from Tuli Tuipulotu. So they weren't getting enough from everybody else on the field. And this was one of those games where I think I said on social media, this was a burn the tape kind of game. Like, you know what? It's a rough one. Got to flush it and got to move on, because it was an uncharacteristically bad game for a Chargers team that prides itself on physicality and making tackles.
And the Chargers, on the flip side, offensively, Herbert just has to be so perfect pre-snap for them to move the ball right now with the state of that offensive line. The pressure's going to come. It's going to be fast. You can get to your first read, and you better have guessed right about what the defense is going to give you. because if you're trying to get from 1 to 2 to 3, 2 and 3 are going to come with either Herbert on his back or someone in Herbert's face. And that's just what you saw in this game, was that, the times where he turned down what was an open first read, there were probably, 3 or 4 that I saw. I'm like, yeah, Herbert probably should have let that rip. But then what happened was, once he tried to come to it or tried to go to his second read, there just was no opportunity there. Unfortunately, this offensive line, if you don't have Joe Alton in there, is just going to be a big, big problem.
The Washington Commanders today, according to Next Gen Stats, had a 2.25 second time to pressure against the Chargers offense. That is the 9th highest this season. That is the highest the Commanders have had at all this season. There's a stretch of plays that I really think encapsulates this game. And it's Trey Pipkins is out for the first play. First play, Justin Herbert gets sacked, loses 9 yards. Trey Pipkins comes in the game. Now it's 2nd and 19. Justin Herbert throws an absolute missile to Quentin Johnson to move the chains on 2nd and 19. Flag on the play, holding on Trey Pipkins. So now we're in 2nd and 29. And I think the Commanders are in cover 2. Justin Herbert drops back, whole shot to Quentin Johnson for 33 yards. Flag on the play. Illegal formation by Trey Pipkins. So now you're in 2nd and 33, and you're just wiped off 2 incredible Justin Herbert plays. I thought Justin Herbert, actually, given everything that was going on, was pretty good. I mean, there were a couple plays that got wiped out because of penalty, and then they were just dropping passes. The 4th down play to Conklin hits him in the head and goes. That
one, though, I feel like Herbert just like, I don't know too many guys who are catching that one. Herbert kind of, I think he would say himself he wants that back, because that thing was a 95-mile-per-hour fastball from like Little League range.
It came out hot, and I think that was part of it, was he was moving too fast because of the pressure. But that's what happens when you're always getting hit, when you're always getting when you were always on the ground, you were always getting sacked, you move hot, you play like every throw is a hot route. And that's unfortunately what happened. And then another play that sort of encapsulates this is just not your night for the Chargers. The punt return that got called back by Ladd McConkey was so cool. He tiptoes the sideline. He spin jumps over one defender, hurdles the punter into the end zone. It gets called back for roughing the punter. And then the next play, Jaden Daniels hits that Luke McCaffrey play for 50 yards. And I was just, that's the play that swung the game, because you get that going into the halftime, you feel a lot better. You go up, I think you go up 17 to 7. But instead, you're going into halftime tied 10-10, and this game is completely different. So it's just one of those unfortunate games, but it really is tough for the Chargers to try and get anything going offensively, because you can't do any drop back. You can't drop back at all, because guys are going to be in Justin Herbert's face immediately. And now with Amari and Hampton, who I believe the Athletics Daniel Popper said was in a walking boot after the game. Again, this just feels like a Chargers canon event. This feels like your average Chargers season where everybody's gone by week 6.
It really does. That punt was, it sucks that punt return was called. That really probably was the game-changing play in this game, because it flips the whole 17-7 going into halftime would have felt much different. And instead, you give basically Commanders a score before half. And it was such a sick play from Ladd McConkey to hurdle the punter at the end, to not only get roughed and then get hurdled. I can't think of a more embarrassing play for a punter. You got double whammy.
That's like Jason Terry getting the ball stolen from him, then dunked on by LeBron in the playoffs. Like that, it's one of those type of games.
Unfortunate. But yeah, this does feel like your average Charger season that had high expectations. They've just never come to fruition, unfortunately for them. Minnesota Vikings at Cleveland Browns, the London game. Vikings win on a last-minute scoring drive, 21-17. Jordan Addison touchdown. Doesn't get hawked from behind this time. They cover as 3.5-point favorites. The over hits there, 35.5. What's your number from this game?
My number was 123 receiving yards for Justin Jefferson, who was incredible in this game. Just bailing out Carson Wentz left and right. There were 2 third-down conversions that I think really stood out. One was like on a blaze out where Carson Wentz throws this pass like he's throwing it to Jesus Christ. This ball is so high up in the air and behind Justin Jefferson anyway, and he goes up and gets the ball first down. Then the next one, I think you can kind of give Carson Wentz a little bit of credit because he's trying to save Justin Jefferson from getting hit. But it's down the middle. He throws him high and behind, and Justin Jefferson goes up and gets it first down, especially in a clutch moment in the game. You can tell Kevin O'Connell really wanted to get him involved against a team like the Browns who play so much man coverage that you just want to try and get the ball into your difference makers' hands. Carson Wentz this felt like a Carson Wentz experience. Like he's going to run around and do a lot of stuff that his body really just can't do. He's going to get hurt, which he did in this game because he got crushed. And then he's just going to make some tough throws at the end. The touchdown to Addison to win the game was really nice. But honestly, the biggest thing that stood out, and I want to ask you, was the Browns rookies look good.
Yes, dude. I said I was probably Dylan Gabriel's biggest fan in the pre-draft process. I had him as QB3. But I said this guy can start in the NFL. He may never be great in the NFL. I don't think he has that level of tools, but this guy can play games for you. He might not look impressive, but he has some skills that translate. The biggest one, I think for a shorter guy, he had actually really good pocket presence at Oregon. Didn't take a lot of sacks. I thought he didn't make a lot of boneheaded plays under pressure. And one of his best traits, I think you saw in this game, is that he has mastered the throwaway, not quite throwaway, like the don't get intentionally ground and call throwaway, where he knows nothing's there, the pocket's collapsing. I'm just going to kind of airmail a corner route. I'm just going to kind of throw it at the feet of a running back. I thought he had a lot of plays. Some of his best plays in this game were just not taking big sacks when he had free runners, or not taking big sacks when like the pass protection was a disaster. I think compared to what Joe Flacco was doing for this Browns offense, and given the level of competition that it was this Vikings defense overseas and all that they throw at you, I thought it was pretty impressive. And then Quinshon Judkins at running back, man, he looks like a true bell cow. Guy looks faster than he did in college. I think it's the biggest thing. Like he looks like he got tuned up a little bit over the course of whatever the offseason, because he had an extra gear in this game, 110 yards on 23 carries, and he had a big one called back too for a holding penalty. I mean, it was a pretty obvious hold, but he could have had over 150 if that doesn't get flagged.
Yeah, and like the Quinshon Judkins just ran with so much oomph. Like he ran with juice. And I think that matters so much for a Browns team that wants to be physical. They want to play in 12 personnel. I thought Harold Fannin Jr. had a nice day. David Njoku was making some sick plays. Like you got everything that you wanted from your core guys. I think defensively, Carson Schlesinger was really good. You got some nice plays from Mason Graham. Dylan Gabriel played fine. I think to me, this game really kind of solidified like, oh, he can be a NFL player. Like he can always be the I guess, and again, I'm not saying this to say like how good Dylan Gabriel is versus this guy, but it's the Case Keenum. He's always going to be around. Mm-hmm. Like if you need a guy to start a game and your starter's just not doing it, you can always count on Dylan Gabriel. He always knew where the ball needed to go. And he actually made a nice throw. I think the Jerry Jeudy drop was a nice throw. They leads away. Well, not leads. He puts the ball low and away to try and protect Jerry Jeudy from getting hit. There was a corner route to David Njoku to set up a touchdown that was really nice. He did some nice things, but the biggest thing he did was he didn't look overwhelmed. He looked like he knew where to go with the ball. And that means so much for a Browns offense. That's all they're asking. Is just know where you're going with the ball and don't panic. And he didn't panic a lot against the Vikings defense that threw a lot at him. Now, the Vikings defense, there's a lot of stuff that I can say about them. And I know they did win the game. Yes, their run defense is bad. Yeah. This is a bad run defense. And I think that's what's going to hold them back, even outside of whatever happens when J.J. McCarthy gets back. They made the gamble of trading away their best run defender to get Jalen Redmond, Javon Hargrave, John Allen, all more reps up front. But the issue is Javon Hargrave is up. You're counting on guys who are a little older, and then Jalen Redmond, who isn't exactly a run defender up front, and you're just getting pushed around.
That's an understatement. I mean,
Yeah,
he has no concept of gap integrity.
No, he's getting upfield. Javon Hargrave is getting upfield. John Allen, even at this age, is getting upfield. You're counting on upfield penetration, but you're just getting gashed in gap scheme. The Browns were running it down the Vikings' throats, and honestly probably should have won that game through just running the football. And sure, you might say, yeah, Blake Cashman coming back might help those things because he is their ace in the middle of the field. He is their middle linebacker, the captain of the defense. But if you're counting on Blake Cashman to turn your run defense that is one of the worst in the league right now to what it was last year at one of the best, that's asking a lot of one guy coming back. That's asking a lot of Andrew Van Ginkel, who plays on the edge. You're asking a lot of these guys. But I have a lot of questions about their run defense, especially in a division where you are going to be playing the Packers. You're going to be playing the Lions. You're going to be playing, even if you expand to the NFC, you're going to be playing a lot of teams that want to be physical and run the ball at you, even if you think you're going to make the playoffs. So that's going to be the one thing that I'm really concerned holds this team back.
Yeah, after last week giving up nearly 100 to Kenny Gainwell and then over 100 to Quinshon Judkins, they look like they're not. I mean, I'm not sure they have right now the horses. They just, like you said, they do not have the guys, and it's very much makes you wonder why they gave away basically Harrison Phillips. It wasn't. They didn't get a lot in return. It was like a day 3 pick.
Yeah, it was like a 6th-round pick.
So interesting move that, well, they got to be just thanking their lucky stars that they're 3-2 right now, because this thing could have gone with all their injuries. There was a point. I mean, the end of the game, their 5 across offensive line was Justin School, Joe Huber, Jake Brendel, Will Fries, Walter Rouse.
There's no team in the NFL that needs a bye week more than the Vikings.
Dude, KOC, hats off to him for calling a game-winning drive with that up front, because against that Browns defensive line, very, very difficult to do.
And do you know their schedule after the bye week, which is why they need it so much? They have Philadelphia. They go to Los Angeles on Thursday. Then they have a road game against Detroit. Then Baltimore. Then Chicago, Green Bay, Seattle, Washington, Dallas, New York, Detroit, Green Bay. There is no team that needed a bye week like the Vikings to just get their guys back healthy, because this is a brutal stretch for a team that really cannot defend the run.
Well, let's hope they do, because I don't want to watch Justin School play any more football. I'm just going to keep it real. All right, let's take a break. After that, we're going to get to Cowboys, Jets, Texans, Ravens, Giants, Saints, and the rest of the slate. Ready for this?
You can't count on Derek's tong skills.
Oh, Tony, I think it hit the ground.
But you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Cowboys roll the New York Jets as 2.5-point favorites. They win 37-22 in New York, 47.5 points. The over hits there. My number from this game, 27. And that's the fewest points the Jets have allowed in a game this season. In 5 games, that's the fewest. Their halftime scores the past 4 weeks, 23-3 in this one, 10-3 the week before, 20-6 and 20-3. They're just flat out getting their ass kicked. That they are the only defeated team in the NFL, the only winless team in the NFL. And unfortunately, it's this defense that for 3 straight years, Robert Saleh had as top 5 defense in the NFL in terms of points per drive. That had talent. A lot of those same guys are there. Now, some guys aren't. They've obviously had some chips off the block. That was that, but not that many chips. I mean, you still had in this one, Sauce Gardner was going one-on-one against George Pickens pretty much the entire game. He won that matchup outside of the one deep ball touchdown that George Pickens got. But like for the majority of this game, he took away the Cowboys' number 1 wide receiver. And you let Ryan Florney go for over 100 against you. Like, how are you just so poorly put together that you can have your number one take away their number one and still get your ass kicked when Dak doesn't even have like a great game? Dak missed like a handful of throws in this game that, he missed like a seam ball touchdown. He missed like some throws. There was not a great game, and you gave up 37 still. They have big time problems on this Jets defense.
I wonder when Aaron Glenn takes back play calling duties, because Steve Wilks is the play caller for this defense. He is the defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn wanted to take on more of a managerial role, but with the defense looking the way it is, I wonder if he takes the reins, because people are already wondering if this is a one and done thing. And I think that Aaron Glenn came in, and I think the Jets came in knowing that this was going to take a long time to rebuild. This was got to wait it out and see and continue to build year over year. But you can't be terrible on your side of the ball. You can't be awful. And that's what the Jets are. They cannot get pass rush, which is insane considering the amount of talent that's still on that defensive line. I mean, their pass coverage, I don't think they have a takeaway at all this season. Sauce Gardner is great, but Brandon Stevens, I think Michael Carter II is still there. Andre Cisco, there's no other impact players in that secondary. And that's why you haven't been able to get pressure, because the ball's out so quickly because somebody's open. So I wonder if Aaron Glenn takes play calling duties back, because this is getting rough, and it's not helping that this was genuinely a really bad offensive line game for the Jets pass pro. Justin Fields was pressured on 51% of his dropbacks against the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys pass rush was getting after the Jets and Justin Fields. So it's looking rough right now in New York and on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of reasons to be enthused. There's not like a bounce here, or we have some guys. Armand Membu looks good, your first rounder, but there's really not a lot to write home about this season. It just looks like a kind of wasted season, unfortunately. And I do worry about Aaron Glenn being a one and done, because, like you said, it's your side of the ball. Your side of the ball is a problem. Not only it might be the worst side of the ball in the entire NFL right now. I mean, you just faced maybe the team that had the worst side of the ball in the Dallas Cowboys defense, and they didn't look that bad. They didn't look as bad as you did. I don't know. It's not going well. Let's go to the flip side, though, in the Dallas Cowboys, because I want to talk a little bit about Javonte Williams. He looks awesome this season. The guy is so cool. Balling. Goes for over 100. It reminds me of like David Montgomery. Remember David Montgomery in Chicago? It's kind of like, he was a highly drafted guy. He was, I believe, a third rounder. Was a starter there, but like his last year in Chicago wasn't good. I think he had like 800 yards and was their starter, and maybe 3.9 or 4 yards per carry. And you're just like, okay, he's kind of just scrape him off the bottom of the barrel. He can be a backup running back for you. All of a sudden, it's like, doing Dave Montgomery's in the game for the Detroit Lions, and it's 3rd and 1. He's converting that shit. So that's how it looks like with Javonte Williams. We're just like, that guy that was really struggling last year in Denver, he's gone. The guy that we thought we were going to see coming out of North Carolina, that was this bell cow power runner, he's back, and it's awesome to see.
I love Javonte Williams' running style because it's so fitting for what the Cowboys need. Javonte Williams isn't going to hit home runs. Like, he is not a big game hunter as a running back. But what he's improved at is his vision and his patience, which helps him be a singles and doubles hitter. He'll occasionally hit you a triple. I don't know what the best baseball comparison is, but he hits you a lot of singles and doubles. He's going to get on base. He'll occasionally get you a triple. Maybe he'll get one just over, or maybe he'll hit the foul ball pole. Maybe that'll be his home runs. But he's constantly going to get you on base, and I think that's something. Yeah, like he's always going to get you on base, and I think that's something that the Cowboys really need in their run game. And it's just cool seeing how he's improved within this offense and how his game has matured since being in the NFL.
5.7 yards per carry. He's on pace for over 1,500 yards this season rushing and 5 touchdowns in 5 games. Guy's been balling. So shout out Javonte Williams. Because I was also very high on him coming out of North Carolina. So shout out to Javonte Williams because he's making me look like I'm not a dumbass. All right, Houston Texans at Baltimore Ravens. Texans win, rolling. 44 points they put up. They cover as 1.5-point favorites. Baltimore down horrendously, obviously. The over hits in this one with the Houston Texans themselves. What is your number, JP?
My number is 161.1 million because that is how much per year all of the Ravens' top inactives make. That is Lamar Jackson. That is Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, Nnamdi Madubuike, Roquan Smith, and Ronnie Stanley. All did not play in this game, and you could probably tell. I don't know how much you can really glean from this performance if you're the Texans. Like, you got the young guys involved. The defense did its thing. I don't know what much else you can really get from this when you're playing the practice squad version of the Ravens. But from a Baltimore perspective, this team quit. This team was done. Like, when the first quarter ended, it looked like a team that did not want to be out there. Cooper Rush, very clearly, not Lamar Jackson. 3 turnovers, and they were awful turnovers too. It was just man, why are you out here? I know I said the Vikings were in need of a bye. The Ravens are really, really in need of a bye week. And it's just the noise around John Harbaugh's job has gotten a little bit louder this season. And it's just, someone asked me, do I think John Harbaugh should be fired? And I'm genuinely just I don't know. He's done so much for the Ravens. He is always going to get them in a position to make the playoffs. But this year, it just feels like some of his game management decisions have been a little bit out of whack. The defense has not come around, even when they're all healthy. And this team today just looked like they didn't want to be out there. So, I don't know how much we can get from this performance from the Texans' perspective, but the Ravens right now look like they are ready to pack it in and sim to the end on this season.
Yeah, that 161 number, that's 57.8% of the cap. So over half their team. And basically all the guys making the real money that are actual impact players are gone. Here's some guys who took snaps, meaningful snaps. 38 snaps for Basil Okoye on the Baltimore Ravens defense. 49 snaps for Keon Martin, and 70 snaps for Ruben Lowry III. Don't feel bad if you haven't heard any of those guys. None of them were actually drafted in the NFL. Basil Okoye actually didn't even go to college. He was, I believe,
he's an international pathway player.
International pathway player. So they were throwing out just not the Ravens defense that we saw. They actually had to play Jair Alexander this week. That's how bad things got in Baltimore.
Because Chidobe Awuzie was also hurt.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, if you have any more takes, feel free. But this was one game I didn't even go back and rewatch. I'll watch it sometime this week, but I didn't need to know what happened after seeing it on the TV copy.
The live cut was brutal. It really was just brutal. And again, there's not much to get from this from the Texans' perspective. CJ Stroud had as many touchdowns as he did incompletions in this game. It was good to get the offense back going, especially with some of the play action stuff. You got the young guys involved, like I said. Jaden Higgins had some nice catches. You got Jalen Noel involved. Woody Marks didn't have a great game, but he showed some juice, some oomph as a runner. I think Nick Chubb had his best game as a runner since getting to the Texans. But yeah, you get Christian Kirk some big plays downfield. There was a nice corner post on a big play, but yeah, this is if you're the Ravens, you got one more week and you can just get to the bye. Unfortunately, that game is against the Rams, so you're going into the bye at 1-5, and that puts you really, really far behind, not only in the division, but I do have to ask, are the Steelers going to win this division just by default?
I think so. Like they almost have to at this point. The Ravens aren't going to, even after their bye, because they're going to be 1-5. They're going to be 1-5. They're not going to rattle off. They'd have to go at least 8-2 the rest of the year, right?
Yeah, and after the bye, you get Chicago, Miami, Minnesota, Cleveland, New York, Cincinnati. They honestly could go 8-2 now that I'm reading it off.
Because they have 9-2, but like they would have to get the division.
To. Like you're putting yourself way behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be tough. But I mean, the Steelers might win the division just based on the fact that they have not self-imploded yet, which doesn't mean I'm completely ruling out the idea of Pittsburgh self-imploding, because that could absolutely happen. But yeah, like right now, the Steelers are probably just going to win based on the fact that everybody is still like healthy.
Who would have thought the one with the 41-year-old quarterback, like the oldest defense in the NFL, is the healthy one?
Mike Tomlin, Genjutsu magic works again. I don't know how he does it.
They might even make the playoffs and not even go 500. This might be the first year they don't go 500, but then still make the playoffs, actually. That's a distinct possibility.
That would be a Mike Tomlin masterclass.
Really
that would be this is like the pure uncut Tomlinisms.
Oh man, I do feel for Ravens fans. This season got absolutely away from them. I honestly can't fathom the guys that are playing snaps. It's unbelievable how many injuries they have at this point. Let's get to the Giants at Saints. Saints win, first win of the season in New Orleans, 26-14. They cover as 1.5-point favorites. The under hits there was 41.5. And my number, it's 5. That was the turnover differential in this one. Giants coughed it up, 3 fumbles, 2 picks for Jackson Dart. Only one was on a 4th down. He's just trying to make a play. It was basically an arm punt. The other one, which actually the pick ended up being better than throwing an incompletion there, because it ended up being like a 40-yard gain in terms of field position. And then the other one was a guy stopped on his route on like a slant. I'm not going to really kill him for that. I thought actually the first half of this game early on, Dart looked great. It was a lot of like, first 15 in rhythm, good. And then second half when, objectively, let's say the Giants receivers aren't good right now. If you don't have Malik Neighbors out there, they're not great. He just didn't have – I thought you saw a stark difference between him and Spencer Rattler in terms of understanding NFL timing, in that you just got to throw it sometimes. It's not always going to look pretty. It's not always going to have this clean window. Sometimes you just got to throw it. And with Rattler, you saw that consistently. He just hits it. I'm just going to throw it. And a lot of passes got broken up. He didn't complete everything, but he didn't take big negative plays. He didn't have the ugly fumble that Jackson Dart did, where he just literally lost the football. Don't know how that one happened. But I thought you saw kind of 2 guys who are both young, but on different points of their developmental curve, where Rattler's kind of getting it. He's at least getting what it needs to be an NFL quarterback, whereas Dart still is very rough around the edges.
I'm curious with the Saints, if they're still on the path that they are, which they are still one of the worst teams in the NFL, probably going to be picking top 5 this year in the NFL draft, even though Spencer Rattler has played solid. He has been a solid player for them. I wonder if they still draft a quarterback. Like, do you still draft a quarterback if you're picking top 5 and Rattler's playing solid? Like, is that on the board? I'm not sure if I'm honestly not sure, because he's played well. The timing has looked good. And when all of his cleats are in the ground, it looks good. But there are moments where just he falls apart. He tries to do too much. And you just remember there are games like the Seahawks game that can absolutely happen. From a Giants perspective, like you said, this is a tale of 2 halves for Jackson Dart. I thought the seam ball for the second touchdown to Theo Johnson was really good. Theo Johnson is having a really fun year. I actually thought he was somebody that could potentially break out for the Giants. It's sort of this vertical like field stretcher and seam stretcher for the Giants. But then just stuff started falling apart after, after the Saints took the lead, a little bit more obvious passing situations, and it felt like Dart just is playing too fast. He's always sort of playing so amped up that it's like you gotta relax. You gotta relax a little bit. And you just gotta focus. I think sometimes like Jackson Dart tries to do too much and his eyes are too wide. He had this problem at Ole Miss where like he's trying to do everything at once, and it's just like just focus on doing the one thing right now. And I think this was a game where you kind of saw that he wasn't doing the one thing. But long season, we'll see what happens. Did you see the Scatterboo pancake on Carl Granderson?
Yes.
That was awesome. I love Cam Scatterboo. He is one of my favorite CTE bringers in the NFL. He's just going to hit somebody really hard. I thought that was awesome.
And then for him to get up and do one of the hardest flops I think I've ever seen.
He took that flop like it was a Ric Flair like bump. Like he was absolutely hitting the deck.
Dude, European soccer players are taking notes from that flop because it was so over the top and impressive. Like it was so over the top that he like slams his head into the turf. Like he went down.
He gave himself a concussion.
I don't think that's possible. Have you seen that guy's neck? Just no way that guy can actually get a concussion. It's too thick up there. But I after he fumbled, I mean, you kind of found out that the Giants guys who, played well last week, it's like, oh yeah, they're still rookies. Jackson Dart's still a rookie. Scatterboo fumbles in this one. He's still a rookie. But then the clip that they kept showing of him screaming on the bench, I need new gloves. I need new gloves after he fumbles was just like a perfect Cam Scatterboo moment. But the Giants in this one, they're not going to win a lot of games with this as it is right now. They're just going to look young. And I don't think Dart's going to do enough to save jobs there, unfortunately, because the defensive line's so fun and they're going to get pressure on everybody. And they got pressure on Rattler in this one, but they're just not talented enough outside of that. They're second level defenders and the back end is still just not good enough that they're going to lose a lot of games this year. And they're going to be in an interesting spot. So for the Saints on the other side, though, I think they draft a quarterback. If you're in the top 5, now it obviously depends. This is a long way to go in this quarterback class. We'll talk about it at some point this season. Once enough teams are really in the draft mix, we'll start getting into some draft prospects and some draft primer stuff. But I think you might have you have 2 at the top, depending on who declares. And if they're in a position to get one, because some of the other teams that are going to be up there, whether it's the Titans, they're not going to be in the market. Whether it's the Bengals, they're not going to be in the market. You might be able to snag one. So I think if you are in that spot with the Saints, I bet they draft one.
Yeah, I'm curious, especially because Spencer Rattler's playing solid football, but drafting a quarterback doesn't mean that Rattler will never play in the NFL again. You have a guy that you can run your offense through. So kudos to him for playing solid despite some of the circumstances in New Orleans.
It does mean, though, that Tyler Shucks never played a game for the Saints.
Absolutely not. And you sunk a second-round pick into a quarterback that graduated high school the same year I did.
That pick for the Saints. It was the same thing. I remember so vividly when the Texans drafted Davis Mills. I'm just like, that's what I used to pick. I'm just like, you just lit that on fire. Like he's definitely not the guy. He might be okay. He might end up being a starter. He's not the guy. Watch Chuck's tape. You're just like, dude, I'd be floored if he's the guy. He's 26. Like if he's the guy, you'd see it by now. So like, I digress. Let's get to the Lions at Bengals. Let's get to these last 2 blowouts and let's get out of here. Lions roll 37-24. Cover is 10.5-point favorites. Over hits there 48.5. What's your number?
My number in this game was 69% success rate for Jared Goff as a passer. Nice. This game was not as close as this final score would suggest. The score was 28-3 in the fourth quarter. Like this was not a close game. And the biggest thing was the Bengals just don't got it. They really just don't got it. When I say this when Jared Goff was kept clean, because the biggest thing in this game was Giovanni Manu was starting for Taylor Decker. And Giovanni Manu knew he was starting for Taylor Decker by Tuesday. Giovanni Manu is not ready for starting reps. Trey Hendrickson worked him in pass rush, so they had to devote more bodies to him. But when Jared Goff was kept clean, he was shredding the Bengals, which is exactly what we expected from this game. We expected for Jared Goff to beat an overmatched secondary and overmatched second level just absolutely down. Like it really was a matter of time for the Lions. The Lions are really good at beating up on bad teams. So I think they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Jake Browning is awful. Like we have seen enough of the Jake Browning experience. He threw some really, really bad interceptions. The one Kirby Joseph picked off was horrendous, where he's trying to throw a go ball to T. Higgins, and his ball is like short and like 5 yards to the left of T. Higgins. I don't know if I thought he got hit, but he didn't. And it's funny because Terry and Arnold had been getting picked on. He just had Aiden Hutchinson had a safety taken away by a Terry and Arnold holding. He had a pass breakup, and then there's this play. He sees the ball coming to him, and Kirby Joseph runs in front of him and picks it off. I felt so bad for him because like this was Terry and Arnold's moment, and Kirby Joseph's like, nope, that's mine. I'll take that. But this game was not as close as it suggests. Jamar Chase got his towards the end of the game when there are obvious pass situations, and the game again wasn't close. Isaac DeSlaw had some really nice reps as a punt gunner and then caught a touchdown pass, which it always seems like Isaac DeSlaw catching touchdown passes. He needed two hands this time, but he's always catching touchdown passes. So I think the Lions are well on their way to being one of the best teams in the NFL once again. The David Montgomery touchdown pass was awesome, but the Bengals are way out of it.
Jake Browning has 8 picks in 4 games. 8 picks in 4 games. Yeah, the Bengals are just giving up too. I mean, they looked very defeated. They almost had the rare, elusive 2 safety game though. I wanted it so bad.
They really tried.
They almost had. I wonder when the last time that's happened. Probably been a while. But yeah, I don't think we're going to need to be talking about the Bengals too much. They just got to hope. They just got to hope they get Ruben Bain territory. Get you a Ruben Bain. That could fix a lot of ills for that defensive line. All right, next and last game on the docket here. Las Vegas Raiders travel to Indianapolis and get absolutely boat raced. 40-6, the Colts win going away as 6.5-point favorites. They cover. The under actually hits here. Crazy that it did. 47.5 was that under. My number for this game, Geno Smith, 9 interceptions through 5 games. That's the most in the NFL. It's the most since 2019 when Baker had 11 and Jameis had 10. And it's the 10th most all time through the first 5 games of the NFL season. It's not going well for Geno. And now one was tipped. Not, can't really blame him for that. But the pick 6 was like an unforgivably bad pass. It could have been picked off by 2 different guys. He's not playing well. And the Colts are just a house. I remain so impressed by this Colts offensive line and how they've gelled at center and right guard with Bortolini and Gonsalves. They just had so much movement up front, basically got whatever they wanted. I did think it was a little interesting that the Colts actually only outgained the Raiders by 21 yards. They outscored them by more points than yards. Obviously the pick 6, block punt, and not kicking any field goals, but just scoring touchdowns helped a lot. But they're just efficient. They're just a very efficient offense as they're currently put together.
And the thing with the Colts is they know exactly who they are. They're going to be built through the run game. Jonathan Taylor is having an offensive player of the year caliber season where he is just providing so much as an explosive threat in the run game. He provides that ability to not only get the 4 or 5 yard gains, he's going to get the explosives as well. And like you said, they just protect the ball. Like they have not turned the ball over a lot in the first 5 games of the season. The only time where they did was the Rams game, where they overcame the bad Daniel Jones game to only lose that game by a touchdown. So I think the Colts are in a good spot, especially in the AFC, where it just seems like everybody's falling apart. But yeah, this Raiders team, this is just awful. Like I as a Geno Smith fan, this is quite possibly the worst opening stretch of play you could have asked for. Like you said, the first one probably would have been a touchdown if not for a tip pass. The second one, he's just forcing it. And that's something Geno Smith never really did in quick game. He never forced quick game. But it feels like with Geno, the lack of arm strength, well, not lack of arm strength, but the dip in arm strength that comes with being older has started to hit. Then you don't have Brock Bowers in this game. You don't have Michael Mayer in this game. So you are throwing to Jacoby Myers. You're throwing to Dante Thornton, Trey Tucker, who are all specialists in their roles. Like they are all – I hate to say this because it's going to sound like slander, but it's a whole bunch of Dylan Brooks on the team and like a whole bunch of like Danny Green where like, oh, these guys are really cool when you compliment them with a superstar who will get them the ball in certain situations. And they are really – and Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, those guys are good when you have your ace, your guy who can take attention away from them. But when that guy doesn't play, it shows why you need the ace in the first place. Yes. So it's unfortunate because Brock Bowers is the straw that really stirs the drink for them. And you could tell he hasn't been healthy. But this team is really far away from being competitive, and Geno Smith is a large part of why.
It was like watching the Cavs the year after LeBron's decision, right? When it was just like they had this role player team of just like all guys who are just can only do one thing. And all of a sudden they lose the guy who kind of held it all together. It's like, oh, we're the worst team in the NBA, actually. That's what the Raiders receiving core looks like. Dante Thornton hasn't caught a ball since week 3. You know, he's over for the last 2 weeks on targets. It's like you're figuring out kind of that the way you built the receiving core. I said it could work week 1. I was like pleasantly surprised, but it was so uniquely put together that sometimes you just want the Packers receiving core where all 4 guys can do everything. You know, all 4 guys can just run the full route tree, and then you just kind of send them out there wherever you want to. It makes your life easier as a play caller. You don't have to scheme around the fact that, hey, I probably can't run a slant with Dante Thornton. You know, hey, I probably can't run a go ball with Jacoby Myers. It's just like that ain't going to work out for you, unfortunately. So, yeah, they're just not a good football team. I had a moment of excitement for them, but unfortunately, that moment has passed, and the Raiders are well on their way to another top 10 pick. All right, there you have it. There's week 5. Almost in the books. We got a nice little Monday night game. Jags, Chiefs. We'll be talking about it on Tuesday when we come back. Until then, keep pushing.